Hello friends, and welcome to the Hanged Man in the Moon. If this is your first time here, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm pleased to meet you. If you've been here before, thank you for returning. I'm truly honored. Friends, if you are a returning visitor, you already know that I'm still at the beginning, but I'm into my deep dive into the Lenormand system, the system that originated in Germany with the game of hope and developed into, with the same cards, the same ideas, the same concepts, became the Lenormand deck in France, and then when it moved to the United States, it became the Madame Morrow deck. Briefly, I mean, I think it's disappeared, and the Lenormand tradition was imported from France, and then it developed again. So, we've got these wonderful cards, and I'm here to explore them with you. And before we get into all of that, I've got some news. I have a web shop open if you are interested. I will put a QR code here. If you want to get a reading, go look at my shop, check out what I've got. I've got a few things on that I'm offering right now. This is still the beginning stages, so I've got a diversity, but maybe not as diverse as I hope it will become in the future. Just saying. So that QR code will get you to the shop on my website, and check it out. See if you're interested in getting a reading from me through that shop, because it might be more convenient for you. Yeah, that makes sense? Okay, so that. Also, I've got a whole spread all laid out for us, ready for us to read together. Are you excited? Did you see the title? Yeah? So before we get into the spread, before I show it all to you, boy, that went in a different direction. Before I show the spread to you, let's focus. Let's draw our attention together. You saw the title, yes? Too much of a good thing. What does too much of a good thing really mean? Have you thought about that? Maybe you have thought about it more than I have. But, for example, do you like chocolate? Okay, if you don't, I'm sure you know somebody who does. Yeah? Somebody who loves chocolate as much as I do. Doesn't just like it or think of the idea of chocolate is good, but loves chocolate. Yeah? And then when there is a banquet of chocolate before him, her, them, or me, the temptation to dive in and indulge is great. And sometimes that temptation is so great that it's imperceptible. Yeah, and so you just go in and start eating it, and then you come to the point where it becomes too much of a good thing. Yeah, chocolate being the good thing, too much of it. What is the result? Discomfort at best. Sickness at perhaps, hopefully, the worst. And so, what does that mean? Yeah, what does that mean for the rest of our lives, for the other areas of our lives? Well, if we're trying to think of living the intentional life, the only way that there can be too much of a good thing, in that negative sense, or better said, if we sense that we are feeling that there is too much of a good thing, in that, again, negative sense, that is an indication of resistance. Yes, it's an indication of resistance. We're not flowing as easily or as comfortably as we could. And if we were flowing as easily and as comfortably as we could, we wouldn't be experiencing the sensation of too much of a good thing. We wouldn't start feeling overwhelmed. We wouldn't start feeling uncomfortable. We wouldn't start feeling weighed by things that we want. but feeling like there's just so much we can't do it, or there's so much that it's crushing, or there's so much and it feels oddly bad. Yeah? Have you ever experienced that in your life? Have you experienced it with suddenly a lot of wonderful people suddenly coming and wanting to get your attention? Or at work, not just one project, but 3 potential wonderful projects suddenly appear before you, and it's overwhelming. Now, it doesn't mean that all those people coming at us, we don't have to be each one of their best friends. We don't have to take on each one of those or every one of the projects, although they all look good. It's a wonderful opportunity to explore choice, right? But the feeling of it being too much is, again, an indication that we are resistant perhaps to making the choices. Or perhaps we're resistant because we have so many negative thoughts about, well, can I do it all? Can I accomplish this? Can I be friends with more than one person at one time, or more than 3 people, or more than 20 people? Yes? Because what is perhaps potentially overwhelming for me might be a different point than it is for you. Yeah? For me, 5 friends might be comfortable, 20 friends would be uncomfortable, feel overwhelming as a concept. Maybe for you, 20 is just fine, and it's when we reach into the 50s or the 60s that you start feeling overwhelmed. But you get my point, right? So, we all have different set points that we've created for ourselves as these ego minds in these wonderful bodies that we are co-creating. But when we're open and we're living the intentional life, those things become unimportant. Because we know that we will flow through experiences in love, in gratitude, in joy, in well-being, in open awareness, and that resistant feeling of being overwhelmed will not occur to us. But still, all of us living intentional lives, practicing the skills of intentional living, all of us will experience, I believe, times when we feel overwhelmed by the good. And I think that's what this spread is pointing us towards. I think that's what I'm seeing. And probably that's the way we're going to go. But let's explore it together. What will I do now? I will show you the spread, and we will talk about the cards. We'll talk about the spread itself, just in case you're new to this kind of reading, to this kind of spread. And then we'll break the spread into its 2 major component parts and read them together. Are you all ready? Friends, here's this week's spread. Friends, what do you think of these decks? Were you able to tell at first glance that they are 2 separate decks? Now, they're actually by the same creator. Yeah, the creator is Anna K. That's her tag for her decks. And there was a Lenormand deck in the center, and there was a tarot deck, which gave us 4 cards surrounding the 6 in the center. And if you want to get these decks, I will put a link to her independent shop, because I always prefer recommending purchasing directly from the creator whenever possible, rather than purchasing through Amazon. Now, the tarot is also produced mass market, and you can get the Anna K Tarot through Amazon. The Lenormand deck I don't think is mass market, so if you want the Lenormand deck, I think you will have to go to her shop. But they're wonderful decks. The Lenormand deck is on the large size for Lenormand for me, but it's a pretty standard Lenormand size. The Tarot deck is on the small size. It's just a little bit bigger than a Lenormand deck. Yeah, it's like a bridge deck, if that makes sense. Wonderful decks, wonderful art. I highly recommend them. Now, just in case, like I said, you're new here and you don't know what you just saw, there were 6 cards in the center. They were from the Lenormand deck, and they give us the primary ideas, the primary information for this spread. Right? There were 3 cards above and 3 cards below. The 3 cards above are basically giving us where our attention is going. The 3 cards below give us basically what is beneath that. It could be something unconscious, or it could be just below the surface of our attention. Now, it's not something unconscious and would be difficult to access, perhaps. And that is possible. But it could also be just below the level of our attention, where if we just turn our eyes down a little bit, oh yeah, that's what I've been feeling or thinking about beneath the surface of my conscious mind, right? Without having to go deep into the unconscious. Does that make sense? So there are those 2 levels. And then there were 4 cards in the corners, and they are representing the 4 main elements in Western culture, yeah? Fire, water, air, and earth. And I will read them with elemental dignities, and we will talk about that, in case you don't know what an elemental dignity is, a little bit later, but just a brief rundown. Each one of the elements: fire for wands, water for cups, swords for air, and pentacles for earth. Each one of them has an element that is exciting, right? That builds it up. Each one of them has an element that drains the energy from it, that is in conflict with it, that will either bury it or will sap it of its vital force. And then there's an element that's neutral, that neither builds it up nor tears it down. Yeah? So we'll read those 4 cards much later in this video with their elemental dignities. And we'll discuss that a little bit more as we go along. So you saw all of the cards, and maybe you can see why I decided to title this video "Too Much of a Good Thing." Can you see that? Well, let's get a close-up view of the Lenormand cards once more, and then we will read those cards together. Here we go. The cards you just saw were, on the top, from left to right, were the sun, the whip, and the cross, and then below that, from left to right, the stork, the book, and the mountain. Now, you know that I like to get a general sense of positivity, negativity in these spreads, and frankly speaking, this spread leans heavily towards the negative, right? And yet, let's start at the bottom. Let's start at the bottom this time with that. Yeah, so the stork is positive, neutral. Yeah, the book is negative, neutral. So those 2 kind of cancel each other out. And the mountain is generally very negative. Right? So the bottom is pretty negative. The top, we started off with the sun, which is positive. The whip, which is negative, neutral. And then the cross, which is negative. So you might think that the cross and the sun cancel each other out and that we've got a negative neutral card in the center, but the sun, for the reader that I learned most from, is not just positive. Yeah, she puts it as triple positive. Yeah, it is the most positive card in the deck for her. And So in a sense, that sun casts its radiant light over the entire spread and moves this very negative spread into a positive space, but it's carrying all of this negativity with it, if that makes sense, right? So we've got this, you could say we've got this crusty chunk of rock, although I love rocks, I love crystals, but we've got this crusty chunk of rock which was dragged out into the sun and is sitting there, but it's still a crusty rock, right? So let's see how this goes. We're going to start off with the 3 cards on top. Yes, the sun, the whip, and the cross. So the sun, lovely sun card. Reminds me a little bit of Italy. We've got the sun shining on this field of sunflowers, lovely. And what is the sun? S-U-N, sun. Well, the sun is that which energizes the entire planet. It's what gives us the energy and for life here on planet Earth. It gives us the heat we require. It gives us the, along with the protective layer of our atmosphere, it gives us the healthful radiation to create nutrients that we require for a healthful life, right? The sun is radiant. It also makes things clear. It makes things visible. It makes things, again, warm. It's a very bright, happy, joyful, celestial body. It is the great parent in the sky. Yeah? And it brings life to the environment. And so people give keywords such as happiness, success, growth, warmth and light, beautiful things in life. So that's where we're starting. Yeah, all of this happiness, all of these wonderful things in life. Right next to, what do we see here? The whip. Yeah, and it's interesting in this image, you see the rack of plates on the top, and you see that one plate has fallen down and is broken. Now, we don't read the plate in Lenormand, right? We're not looking for that. We can also see a kind of duster here in the corner, because the whip card is also, or has also been called things like the rod, yeah, like thing that you use to poke cattle with, a rod. And it's also the broom, right? And they're all indicators of very similar actions. The whip and the rod are used repetitively to get livestock, to get other animals to move in the direction and to behave in the ways that we want them to move and behave, right? The broom is something that we use to clean the house, but it's also something that we don't, it's not like, what? It's not like a hammer and nail, right? Where you want to put up a picture, okay? So you have a wood wall. These are just, imagine these things. You have a wood wall, you want to put up a picture on this wooden wall, and you have a nail and you have a hammer, you put the nail to the wall and bang, 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 the nail is in well enough, 3 taps, 4 taps maybe, and you're done. Brooms are used not once, not with 1 stroke, not with 3 strokes, not with 10 strokes, but with hundreds and thousands of strokes, right? Yeah, so there's the idea of repetitiveness. That's the word, repetitiveness in this card. Doing things over and over. There's also that violent quality of the whip, which is possible here. Yeah, whips are, we don't usually use whips to goad our animals with love, but rather to get going, right? Hiya, hiya. You've seen that in the movies, I'm sure. I hope. Well, I don't hope you've seen it in the movies, but I hope you've seen a variety of movies, and that might have been included in one of those movies. Yeah, the whip. Used to get people to do things, and sometimes in an argumentative way, right? Used to clean. So the whip, the broom, even the rod can be argumentation, power struggles, even violence sometimes, maybe harsh communication. But it can also be exercise for some people. It can be dance even. It can be addictions for some people. Because of that broom idea, it could also be purging. Yeah, we purge the dirt on the floor out of our house. Because it is a jack here, well, you can't see it up there. You see it, if you can, right down there at the bottom. It's the Jack of Spades, which gives us the idea of if it's a person, it could be a lawyer or it could be a student, somebody with an unrestrained way of speaking and communicating, maybe younger, maybe aggressive, maybe troubled, perhaps sharp-tongued. That kind of person. If there's that kind of person in your life, that this card could be indicating that for you. But somebody who, like I said, is quick of mind, sharp of tongue, and is not easily censored, doesn't self-censor very well, and is not easily censored, right? And sometimes younger. And again, repetitiveness. Now, with the sun, what does that mean? Yeah? Imagine this. Imagine the sun is out. And then there's another sun that's out. Or this sun comes out over and over and over and over again. It kind of reminds me of when I lived in Southern California. Yeah? Sunny days at the beginning were wonderful. But after months, and for me, after months and months and months of only sunny days, it began to be burdensome. It began to be depressing. It began to be weighing. Where's the relief of the rain? Where's the relief of the snow? Where's the relief of a cloudy day? Can you understand that? So that's why I got that idea of too much of a good thing. Yeah? Happiness, yes. Success, yes. But sometimes when it gets repetitive, it starts getting a little bit difficult. Again, we talked about why. And that why is coming up right now because this third card, this leads to burden, the cross, right? Now, okay, so the cross. Let's talk about the cross. The cross can be a couple of different things. The cross can be the cross that, for example, Jesus Christ and other Christian and non-Christian people were attached to until they died, suffered and died. Right? It's a place of suffering and burden. But because this deck was also created in a Christian environment, there's also the potential addition of the concept of spirituality and the life of spirit. In the picture here, I don't know if you can see it, we see a woman, looks like a woman to me, at least a person in a dress, carrying water in buckets, 2 buckets attached to a pole across, I think, her back. Yeah, carrying them like this, right? So there's 1 bucket on this side and 1 bucket on this side carrying water, or maybe something else, but I get the idea of water from this image here. That burden if you're thinking tarot, maybe like the Ten of Wands, kind of burden. So, in the Smith-Waite deck, the Ten of Wands, sorry, clarification. What is this telling us? Well, that repetitive happiness could be a spiritual thing. And perhaps if this were below the sun, I would say that, because I read the cross a bit directionally, with directionality, with directions. Our, and I'm including myself in this, recent proclivity of adding "ity" to the end of adjectives or words that can very well easily just be reduced back to their original adjective, or noun, I'm sorry, back to their original noun form, is irritating to me. And I do it, yes? Yeah, I just said direction, directional, the direction is the noun, directional is the adjective. And then I went from the adjective back into this unnecessary, weird noun form of directionality. Why do we need to do that? Yeah? Just direction. I read with directions. Instead of directionality, I read with directions. So, if things on top are elevated, perhaps by destiny, things below are depressed and burdened, are heavier. Things to the right are enforced and strengthened. Things to the left, they stop, period. This is finished. So, the things that were to the left that are stopping, perhaps, are the repetitive happiness thing. So, what does that mean? Does that mean that in this spread, we've had this repetitive happiness thing that ends because it feels like a burden? Right? It ends because it feels too hard, too difficult. And because we focus on that feeling of difficulty, we then lose that happiness that we started off with in all of its diverse forms. That makes sense, yes? Now, for other people, well, I already talked about it. Burden, fate, destiny, right? Let's look at, so that's what we get in our conscious level. That this happiness, which seems to be coming at us, perhaps a little bit too much, ends because it feels like a burden. Like it's too much, yeah? What's below that? Well, we start off with the stork. So what's below our conscious level is that we are moving on, right? The storks, they move on. They are migratory birds. They build strong houses, so they have a very durable, enduring home that they fly off to, but then return to, right? They mate for long periods of time. They move forward, and in Western culture, we have that idea of them being the bringers of babies in the symbolic sense, right? So, the stork is positive change, right? It's movement. We're in the middle of a transition. Things are developing for us. Maybe not in ways that we expected, but they're developing, and generally in positive ways. Generally in positive ways. Now, the association, which you probably cannot see there, is the Queen of Hearts. So we've got the idea, if this is a person, that this is a very warm, home-loving and home-making female figure, right? It could be a female friend, it could be a sister, a mother, a nurse, a caregiver, those kinds of heart-centered, warm, caring female beings in the world are represented by this card too. So if you've got somebody like that in your life, that's maybe this person is swimming just below the surface of your conscious awareness. But we're also looking at positive changes for us now. And movement in transition. To what? And you notice that these birds are flying in the direction of this, the book. And the book is that which is published. Yes? It's a long message, a long series of information that is intended not for one person, but for a wider audience. Now, at the time of the creation of these decks, it was also a time when literacy was not all that high. There was literacy, there were published books, but not as high as it is now, right? So, we've got that idea of secrets, things, information that is not available to everybody. You'll notice that this book is entirely open, so it's a little difficult to see where the closed secret is and where the opening is in this particular deck. I prefer seeing a closed book because I like seeing where the binding points and where the potentially openable pages point. Yeah? We don't get that here. So we got the idea of potential secrets, things not shown yet. That which is hidden, that will probably be revealed if we take the time, if we do the opening of it. We open the book and we look at the pages. There's knowledge contained here, perhaps even study. Learning is possible here. So maybe we're on a journey of, I'm getting two things here. We're on a journey, a transition, a positive change of learning, of study. Like me, studying the Lenormand. We're on that journey of study and learning. But the transition that we're experiencing may also not be clear to us. We might not be aware of the transition that we are in the midst of or that we're about to embark on. That might be that kind of a secret, not like, ooh, don't tell him or her or them, but rather the secret as in we don't know it yet. So we might be that. If you don't feel like you're in the middle of a transition, maybe you just haven't realized it yet. It's still a secret to you. Yeah? And we go with that to the mountain. And mountains are wonderful things, right? I was just with a friend yesterday who loves going to the mountains. Now, mountains in Korea are a little bit different from mountains in other places in the world, linguistically. Yeah? What we call a mountain in Korea could be a mountain or could also be a hill in the United States, in English, right? In English, a lot of things that we would call hill, in Korea, they call them a mountain. So, my friend likes going to the mountains, not all that high, but a little bit high, yeah? And so this card kind of reminds me of him a little bit, but the mountain is not something that we can move over easily, right? It's something high, it's something that's challenging. Sometimes it stands in our way. We want to get from point A to point B, there's a mountain in the middle, it's a problem, right? It's not a problem like it should disappear, but it makes the journey more difficult. Yes? So this is the card of the obstacle, the blocking of things, blocking of passage, the challenge. It's not necessarily insurmountable, but it is a challenge. Yeah? Some people call this the no card. It's not really a no card necessarily. It's just it's not going to be all that easy. It's not easy sailing, it's not easy passage. There's something standing in the way, but it's also something that we use to climb to the heights and get a broad perspective, right? So it could be difficult, but it could be worthwhile as well. And so what I get from this card, after the stork and the book, that we've got this transition that we that could be one of learning. That learning could be challenging, but in the long run, beneficial. We could get a broader perspective. Our transition might not be clear to us yet. We might not be aware of it yet, which could be the obstacle, could be the thing that is challenging. That we're in transition, we don't know that it's happening yet, and there's a hidden obstacle there. There's a hidden difficulty there. And maybe this video is going to help you reflect and think of, how am I about to begin, or how have I begun my transition in life? And that will help you overcome whatever obstacle or challenge that is facing you, me, us. Yeah? So that's what's swimming beneath the surface here for us. Now, I also like to read the columns, right? The vertical columns. So the first vertical column on the right gives us the sun over stork, which is, what could be better, right? This is how we begin. Happiness, success, and that emphasizes that the positive changes, the movement, the transition that it's a happiness and success of positive change, of transition, of things developing. It's not just you're sitting there on the grass and you're feeling the sun. We're in movement, we're in motion, we're growing, we're evolving, and that is what kind of success, that is what kind of growth, what kind of warmth we're feeling. It's the warmth and the happiness and growth of transformation and evolution and positive changes. That's all wonderful, isn't it? Absolutely wonderful. So like I said, it's like this rock is being brought out into the sun, and that sun is wonderful. But we still got the rock. The next two cards, what do we have? We have this sense of maybe there's some power struggle going on with the whip card, the rod card. Maybe there's challenges, there are difficulties that we're not aware of. Now, it could be so it could be repetitive study. It could be that this repetition, this exercise is one of study and learning. If that is true for you, bravo. It could also be repetitive struggles that we're not really aware of yet. Yeah? It could be what am I trying to say? It could be that while we're going along, in the background, without our really knowing it, there are arguments going on, there are struggles going on, there's there are communications, negative communications going on that make things more challenging for us, especially. Because it's all related to us, because it's us that we're reading through this spread, right? So, yeah, things are really good, but there are two things possible. One is that we have we're really practicing, we're really studying, we're really learning. Or that in the background, without our really being aware of it, there are repetitive conflicts, there are repetitive negative communications, there are difficulties that we're not really aware of, yeah? And then we move to the next three cards. Now, the cross is above the mountain. What does that tell us? Well, remember, the cross, things at the bottom are depressed, they're burdened. So this challenge, this obstacle, is also a burdensome obstacle. And it's a big challenge that the burden and the obstacle, they are interacting and melding into one big thing, right? One big burdensome obstacle in our way. And that can be real or it could be perception, yeah? Take the example. Okay, so we're happy, we're growing, we're transforming, and we're doing the repetitive work of learning, and we're studying, and we're learning, and we're studying, and at some point it just feels like, oh, this is too much. Or we realize I've only gotten this far, and we look ahead and we think, I've still got all this to learn, like we're looking up at a mountain. It's like, all this to learn, am I ever going to get it? Have you ever had experiences like that? I'm sure you have. If you've been an elementary school student, and then a middle school student, and perhaps a high school student, and then perhaps a university student, I'm sure you have had moments of that sometime in your life. Yeah? So it could be that. It could be that this transformation, this learning process, which is good, there are times when it's going to feel insurmountable, like the mountain. Now we've got a couple more ways to read this spread. Let's look at what I call the chevrons, other people call the arrows. We'll have the 3 cards pointing upwards, which will be the stork, the whip, and the mountain. And then I should have said the stork, the whip, and the mountain. And then we'll have the 3 cards pointing down, which will be the sun, the book, and the cross. So let's start with the information that's coming up into our awareness, the chevron pointing up. And so we have the stork, the whip, and the mountain. What does that tell us? Well, the whip is the central card. This is the main idea for that which is coming up for us. That there's repetitive work, repetitive stuff that is going to be coming up for us. It could be argumentative, it could feel negative. But while it is, where's the mountain? It is an obstacle. That repetitive stuff, the action, the learning, whatever it is going to be beneficial for us because it's going to be what moves us into our new lives. It's going to help us evolve. Does that make sense? That is how things will develop, how we will develop. And our development, again, might not be the development that we're expecting for ourselves. We might develop into a completely new and wonderful being that we didn't expect. Now we have the 3 cards pointing down, right? And what are those? We start off with the sun, the book, and the cross. So what do we get here? The central card here, which is that which is dropping down into our souls, into our hearts, is... Okay, I'm getting... What I'm really getting from this spread as we read this together is that we're going through a transformation of learning. We're going through that awkward stage of becoming somebody new. And we're learning stuff. And that learning, that knowledge that we're gaining is central here. And that knowledge is dropping into ourselves. And that knowledge is beneficial. It's what will give us our success and our growth. And maybe that knowledge is spiritual. Maybe we're getting a clearer sense of who we are as eternal beings having this human experience. But that could also be a burden to us, right? It could be our fate, it could be our destiny, according to some readers, but it could be our spiritual journey. And I'm going to keep the title that I started off with, Too Much of a Good Thing. But I really am beginning to think that this is a spiritual, a soul journey, a spirit journey, a spiritual journey that we are on right now, a transition of learning and growth that is going to be uncomfortable. And so I'm going to keep that too much of a good thing, because it does seem like this spread does seem overwhelming, right? Now, we got another way to read these cards, yeah? I like to add up the playing card insert information to get another card. What does that mean? On the top, we had an ace for the sun, a jack for the whip, and a 6 for the cross. Let me just double check that. A 6 for the cross. Yes, a 6 for the cross. So, what does that give us? Yeah, an ace plus the jack, that's 22. Jack is 11. I'm sorry. Ace plus the jack is 12. Yeah, jack is 11, ace is 1, 12. Plus 6 is 18. And 18 is the dog. And the dog is the card of friendship and loyalty and reliability. Now, it could be a person, but let's keep with the loyalty, friendship, reliability idea. The 3 cards below, we had the stork giving us the queen, which is 12. Yeah, the book had 10, and the mountain was an 8. So 12 plus 8 is 20. Plus 10 is 30. That gives us the lily, which for me is sensuality. To me, the lily is a very sensual flower. The petals are lush, right? They're thick. They have texture, and they're firm yet supple. Yeah, sensual, but there's also the idea of maturity and harmony. So I think for us now, for us to live our intentional lives and not get weighed down and not to attach ourselves to the feelings of burden and obstacle, the path we want to take, the attitude we want to inhabit is one of friendly loyalty, reliability, harmony, and maturity. We want to grow in maturity and harmony, being loyal to those who are our friends, being loyal to those things that we love, being loyal and reliable, showing up, and showing up for ourselves as well. We want to be loyal, friendly, and reliable to ourselves, to the people that we love, and to the things that we love. For example, I love tarot, so I want to be loyal to and reliable in that, my practice of tarot, for example. And Lenormand, of course, now too, yes? So for us to live our most intentional lives, to be open to the power of intention, when those feelings of burden and of obstacle might be showing up, that things are good but too much, and we don't see how we're going to overcome or surmount this mountain of learning, perhaps, that we are facing. We want to direct our attention to loving ourselves up, yeah, to loving those around us, being friends, reliable to ourselves, to our process, to our learning even, and to the things that we love, because those will help us. Does that make sense? So friends, we've got 4 cards from the tarot to take a peek at, and they will probably, I think, help us to parse out this reading a little bit more clearly. Here they are. Friends, you just saw that square of cards. In the upper right left-hand corner, we had the Ace of Cups in the fire section. Yeah. In the lower right-hand corner, we had the Two of Cups in the water section. And then in the upper right-hand corner, we had the Ace of Pentacles in the air section. And then in the lower left-hand corner, we had the Earth. In the Earth section, we had the Temperance card. Now, maybe you remember, last week the Temperance card appeared, but it was in the water section. That was in the lower left-hand corner. Now this week it's back in the lower right-hand corner, which is interesting, right? We still got that idea of temperance, of balancing, of harmonizing, I should say, harmonizing rather than balancing. Although balance is part of it, but I often think of the balance of the Justice card and then the harmony of the Temperance card. For me, I separate those that way. Now, balance, like two things equal, making things equal, like justice, but harmony of temperance is where we mix things together and things flow between each other and they harmonize, yeah? Rather than being equal. Okay, so anyways, that's not that important for right now. What is important is that we start off with the fire section, and in that fire section, we have one of my favorite cards in the deck, and also one of the cards that makes me the least happy because I get so excited that I create disappointment for myself from time to time. It's this card, the Ace of Cups. It's a very unusual Ace of Cups card, right? Instead of just seeing the beautiful cup flowing with water, and perhaps a dove coming down, which we'd see in the smith-waite deck, what we see here is a solitary woman sitting by what looks like a lake or a river, looking at a cup overflowing with water, right? You see that she's looking at and she is holding the cup, but that cup is flowing over with water. And we see that flowing over in the smith-waite deck as well. But here we've got the person holding the cup right by what looks like it's probably a river, but it could be part of a lake, I guess. Lovely card. We see the snow there around her, so we get the idea of the environment being cold, but the water is not frozen. She's wearing warm clothes, but things are warming up, perhaps. Yeah? So, we have things warming up. We've got emotions flowing. Water is emotions. Love, new relationships perhaps, companionship. The watery creativity of poetry and song perhaps. Abundance. Positive affirmations are possible here. A lovely card, a lovely image. We've got the bright sunny day. But this card is sitting in the fire section, and fire and water are what we call ill-dignified, which means they sap each other of their energy. So this being up in the fire is drowning out our passion, perhaps. Now, fire is what? Fire is our passion, our creativity, but creativity in the passionate sense of like the material arts or painting or it could be music, but it's passionate music rather than soft, melodic, sweet, romantic music. Would be the music of Bach or Beethoven or perhaps Mozart, of maybe even Wagner. The fiery arts are being watered down. Yeah? Now, it's a hopeful, watery feeling, but it drowns out perhaps our libido, our energy, which could get us through these feelings of obstacle, of burden that we got from the major spread, right? Things feeling overwhelming or too big or too much. If we had maybe the reason we're feeling that is because our inner fire is being drowned out by positive but emotions, by water. And maybe that water needs to be put back in its place. But let's move into the water, because in the water section, what do we have here? We have the Two of Cups. And this is a cool Two of Cups card, I think. You see the male person and the female person there looking like they're in this clear relationship. It's cool that both the male figure and the female figure are drawing the curtains together to find some perhaps private space. Although that private space is a window, and that window is open, and there is sun in the background, and so anybody outside can very clearly see them. But people inside, they're perhaps trying to hide from the people inside the building. They both have their cups in their hands. It's a very romantic interlude, right? And the Two of Cups is unified love, it's partnership, it's mutual attraction. It could be platonic, it could be friendship and cooperation with other people, but with that Ace of Cups and this Two of Cups together, I get the idea of romantic love a little bit more strongly here. But if you have no one like that in your life and we're reading for you through me, it could be a close, intimate friend. Non-sexual, but close and intimate, yeah? And this card is in the place it wants to be. Water, the Two of Cups is water, and it's in the water section. So we're here, our loving interactions, our loving communication, our loving sharing of love is in a good place right now. That's good. And it is supportive. We are mutually supportive here. Which is wonderful, because the next card we're going to go to in the air section is the Ace of Pentacles. Which again, another ace. We had two aces on top. New beginnings, right? But those new beginnings are both in ill-dignified places right now. Now the water was in the fire section, and this earth card is in the air section. Again, ill-dignified. So while this beautiful card, you see the girl, the female, the woman figure sitting there on what looks like the edge of a small ditch, and she's got what looks like seeds or perhaps gold in the inside of the ditch. She's got the shovel there. Yeah, looks like a fall scene to me. She looks very comfortable. It's a warm fall day. She's maybe uncovering what was buried. So this is the card of, and again, a sunny day, card of a new financial or career opportunity, uncovering something that is beneficial. Manifestation, abundance. We might get an offer here in the coming week. And maybe that offer could add to all of this good stuff and then become again burdensome. But this is what's in our head space, yeah? What we're thinking about. We're thinking about new opportunities. We're thinking about new career ideas, changes maybe. We're thinking about manifestation. We're thinking about abundance, and we're not doing anything about it. We're not doing the work of it. This is all thought experiment even, perhaps, or we're talking about it. But this card needs to move down into the earth section, just as the Ace of Cups needed to move down into the water section. Right here, the thinking about it is wonderful, but it is not productive. It's not going to manifest. We need to bring it into our work and our earth space. So what's in that earth space? In that earth space, we have a card that is not necessarily, okay, so this card is not on its surface elementally assigned. However, we know that in the Golden Dawn tradition, the Temperance card is associated with Sagittarius, which is the domicile of Jupiter, yeah, which gives us mutable fire's vital attributes entering this spread right here. Fire in earth is fine. They're neutral. They don't bother each other. So temperance here, in the space of our work, in the space of our health, in the space of our resources, is beneficial. Yeah, we've got good harmony in that space. We've got some potential healing. What do we see in this card? We see the woman, right? She has, remember the woman carrying the two vessels in the cross card? You see the light, and she and the two vessels on the stick, just like this woman, created a shadow of the cross. Well, here we've got the temperance card performing pretty much the same action, but looking a lot less burdened. So again, harmony, healing. Patience is going to be our friend here. Perseverance, or perseverance, however you prefer saying it. Forbearance. Having our sense of purpose is going to be beneficial for us here. And the temperance card is the card of alchemy for me, especially when we go into the thought system. The thought system created by Lady Frida Harris and Aleister Crowley renames the card art. And the art card is the card of alchemy. It's the alchemical marriage. No, it's not the marriage. It's the alchemical, the final result of the, it's the alchemical process. Okay, so a little dive back into the thought. So in the lover card, we have the alchemical marriage happening. The red king and the white queen, yes, are getting married. In the art card, they have merged into one. And then later in the deck, we have the result. Yeah, so this card for that is the process of alchemy, of having the prima materia transmute into the philosopher's stone, or into gold, right? So that's what we want to do. We want to, in our physical space, we want harmony, we want patience, forbearance, perseverance, purpose. We want to carry the water, but not in like, I'm burdened by it, not in that sense, but we're carrying the water from the well or from the stream to our home. It's not the burden. We're just we're sweeping the lawn, we're sweeping the steps, and we are chopping the wood, right? We do the stuff without attaching ourselves to the sense of being burdened. And we can do that. We can shed that feeling of burden if we choose, and flow with the staying present into the now, in the now. Why? Because that sense of burden is usually because we are thinking of all the stuff that's coming at us rather than paying attention to where we are, who we are, and when we are. We're projecting fear out into the future rather than experiencing fully the now, and opening ourselves to the now, and flowing with where we are as this ever evolving, eternal now moment moves through space-time. If that makes sense. I hope it makes sense. Does this reading make sense? Did you get what I'm seeing? I hope you did. Now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I want to thank you for hitting the thumbs up button, and I want to thank you for subscribing. You are a blessing, not only to me, but to other people who are looking for this channel and don't even know what they're looking for, right? So, you're a blessing to them. You help get this channel in front of their faces. Also, if you want a reading from me, remember, I put that QR code up towards the beginning of the video, but there's also going to be my address, the address for my webpage, in the description box below. Or my email will be down there too, so you can shoot me an email, or you can go to my shop and pay for a reading, and we'll get you the reading. And check out the options there. And that's it. Thank you. And so now, as always, I wish you love, joy, well-being, and pure awareness. Thank you.